In the basement of the mud flap house, flapping and poo, and they're under with the grains and news. And Pooh licks himself, and Flap contemplates manly things. He thinks about guns and trucks and Stooges 3, men and boys, and that doesn't sound right. He thinks about boobs and bacon and power tools. Come with me, let's remasculate. Oh, won't you come with me and remasculate?
Well, guys, welcome to another episode of the Remasculate Podcast. We're glad you're here. Always glad you're here. With this COVID lockdown, I should be doing like a podcast every day. But I've got to admit, I've really gotten into, and this is going to sound like I ought to have on socks and sandals, I've really gotten into metal detecting again. I used to do it a lot when I was younger. My brother and I did. And I got out of it, and my brother got a new metal detector, so I got one of his older ones, and it's a Garrett AT Max, and I love it. I don't know if you guys have seen any of my videos on YouTube. I've been posting treasure hunting videos. I call it dirt fishing with Steve Mudflat McGrew. I have found like an 1875 dime. I found a bunch of silver quarters, silver dimes. Found a couple of rings. I found a gold ring. I've gotten distracted by it. So every day I'm thinking about how can I get out and go metal detecting, because it's exercise. With the COVID lockdown, we're all just sitting around in sweatpants, eating crap we're not supposed to. Even I've put on like 15 pounds that I lost doing keto. So I have got to get back in shape, get the weight off, because, as soon as this COVID thing disappears, because there's going to be a new COVID czar or whatever, and it's all magically just going to disappear, I guess, right? I don't know. I guess the vaccine is going to come along and we're all going to be free at last. But I want to be able to get back on stage and look good. Which, by the way, I'm going back on stage this weekend. If you're listening to this December 11th or 12th, I'm going to be in Fort Worth at Hyenas Comedy Club. 2 shows a night. Social distance shows. At least Texas is still doing that. This will only be my second club since March. I had been locked down for quite a while and feeling rusty, and did Little Rock a few weeks ago, and that went great. We sold that out. I just think people are ready to get out. They want to get out. They want to put on some nice clothes and make an appearance again, which my wife and I were at the mall the other day, and we were both like, who's buying nice clothes? They got all these New Year's clothes out on the mannequins. I'm like, who's buying? Nobody's going to New Year's parties. Nobody's going to big Christmas parties. They should have just like sweatpants on the mannequin. My wife's like, yeah, that'd be nice to see some kind of nicer sweatpants outfit, something you could wear comfortably around the house. None of this ball gown dancing under a disco ball look. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. I'm going to try to do more of these podcasts. I say that all the time, but I am going to try to do more. Tom Davin, who is my guest this week. Tom is from another podcast, the Say What podcast, that I used to listen to and love. He hasn't done one of those podcasts in a year. I think people, like from our time period, been doing 6 or 7 years ago. I think mine's almost 8 years now. You kind of feel like, well, I didn't get picked up by one of the big Podcast One things, or I didn't get picked up and turned into one of these big fancy podcasts. And this becomes a job or work, and we're doing this for fun. And if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. But I still think these are fun. I still enjoy it when I get down here and do it. So it's like anything else, you don't think you want to do it, then you motivate yourself and you go, wow, that really was fun. Like, going someplace. You're like, I don't really want to go out tonight. And then you go out and you're like, wow, that was great. I had fun. Dinner was good. I'm glad we did it. And that's the way I feel every time I do a podcast. So, well, let's get on with it, guys. Let's get on with today's podcast. Like I said, today's guest is Tom Davin from the Say What podcast. He did the podcast with Graham and there was another guy, which I will find out his name when I do the interview, but I hope you enjoy it. It's a chance to, if you were a Say What podcast fan, which there were thousands of them, the listenership was massive for a while, you will probably be glad to find out what's been up with Tom these days. Let's find out right now.
Aloha!
All right, because I want to find out all the background on you and the podcast and how, like so many of them, you guys went, I don't know what's happening these days with the podcast. So that's where I want to go with this. So I'm already recording, so I'm going to go ahead and say to the listeners, I am here with one of my favorite podcasters, a podcast that I started listening to, years ago now. You guys have been doing it for a long time. It's Tom Davin from the Say What podcast, which is honestly one of my favorite. When I first discovered you guys, I binge listened, and there was 3 of you at that point. Now, tell me about that. It was you, Graham, and it wasn't even, was it Graham?
So originally it was actually called Say What with Tom and Chase. That was actually the official title of the show. My friend Chase, it was actually his idea to come up with the podcast. And can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Did we lose each other? We may have to reconnect. Hold on. I'm going to stop.
Okay.
We are keeping it real. Now we're back. We're reconnected through Skype. Neither one of us are Skype geniuses. Matter of fact, I don't believe anybody is a Skype genius. Anybody I've ever done a Skype podcast with, they're like, okay, hold on just a sec. Or let me call you back. All right, wait, hold on. Yeah.
Oh, it took me at least an hour to figure out what my I remember creating a Skype account probably like 8 or 9 years ago, and it's been the same one ever since. And of course, it's a password from 8 or 9 years ago as well, which I don't remember those things very well.
Right.
So,
I think everybody at this point just signs in, requests a new password almost every time.
Every single time, yeah. Then I forgot my username and then you tried to call me, and I'm unavailable. So obviously, we're great at this. We're awesome at this.
That's the one thing I do like about the new MSN program is that it sends you an authenticator number. You don't even have to remember a password. When you try to sign in, it'll say authentication, and you get this alert, and you click accept, and you sign in. Or it sends you a number sometime, and you have to click on the right number of 4 they send you. So it's much easier than going, God, I got to reset my password again.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot better. Somebody knows what they're doing in the password department over at MSN. So everybody else should jump on board. That's for sure.
Yeah. So back to the podcast originally. It was you and Chase.
Chase, yeah. So my friend Chase is actually a guy that I went to high school with. I've known him for 15 years now. And it was actually his idea to start a podcast. And I wasn't on board at first. I didn't actually want to do it. And he convinced me somehow. Neither one of us knew what we were doing. I mean, even up until the end, we didn't really know what we were doing. So it was just kind of like, it evolved over time. Graham was actually somebody who used to send us a lot of like we'd call it listener mail, and he started sending us these like would you rather questions that eventually evolved into a segment on the show.
I remember that.
So that eventually evolved into him actually coming onto the show to read those questions. He used to just join us for that segment, and that was it. And then he became like a full-time kind of member of the show. And then Chase, over the course of 4 years, ended up having 2 more children, and it just became his life was just way too hectic and busy to record a podcast, which I totally understand now. I didn't back then, but I do now, obviously, because now that we're kind of grown ass men and full grown adults, more so than we were 8 years ago. As that it's been over a year now since we've posted an episode. So I totally understand the busy life, but yeah, Graham jumped in as like the, basically like the supporting role, and then became basically a 50-50, it was totally just as much his show as anyone else's. And it was just kind of funny how he squeezed his way onto the show. Like he was a guy, like I knew him kind of like I never really had talked to him or hung out with him or anything like that. prior to him being on the show. I knew of him. He knew of me. We were both musicians back in the day and kind of knew of each other that way. We're both kind of from the same area. So I mean, it wasn't weird that all of a sudden there's this guy that I'm not really friends with is all of a sudden on my podcast, and we became obviously very close friends, and he became a full-time part of the show, and I actually just saw him 2 days ago. He's doing great.
Well, I thought about trying to get both of you guys on here as like a reunion show. Like they always do. That's a reunion.
Right. Like we're on friggin' TLC or something.
Yeah. Well, you guys are talking about.
I ran into him. I actually talked to him. I don't know if you can still hear me, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Your video's cutting in and out, but so I did ask him a couple days ago. He's really busy. He runs a coffee shop now in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, which is about an hour from here. So it was tough for him to, with COVID and everything, and it's just kind of, how things are right now.
Let's be honest. We're all making excuses. Let's just be,
sure.
Because if we can't find an hour a day, we could podcast from the toilet with the technology we have
that's
today.
True.
Because,
hey, with the troubles that I have signing in, maybe that's not true. But but yeah, you're right. To the normal person who's computer literate, sure. I can't figure that shit out, though.
Yeah. Well, because I don't know if you know, my wife and I do a podcast together, and she does another one on her own called Two Girls and a Bottle of Wine. And I've heard her come in from work just like, oh, I'm exhausted. It's podcast night. And then I hear laughter from upstairs. She's down here in the studio, and I can hear laughter. Because it's like, you don't really want to do it. I feel tired. And then once you start.
If you can hear me, Steve, you froze.
Can you hear me now? I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that. So yeah, she comes to the door and says that she's exhausted. It's podcast night.
Yeah, and then she'll do the pod. Doesn't act like she doesn't want to, but I'll hear laughter upstairs. She's down here in the studio, and of course, it's like you don't really want to do it, but once you start doing it, you're like, yeah, this is why I love being able to get my thoughts and opinions and have fun out. And that's why when you said Chase was like, oh, he couldn't find the time, like. Come on now, somebody can go, shut up, Daddy's recording.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, there was obviously an element of he lost interest as well. You know what I mean? As and I guess for to a certain degree, that's kind of what happened with Bram and I as well. Like we kind of lost interest in continuing to do a show. It wasn't as much about us not being able to find time for it. But I mean, we obviously, we both got busier. Chase did get busier. I guess all three of us have used that as an excuse, but I mean, at the same time, it did become a thing that was almost like, man, do I really have to do this again this week? Like I didn't have time to prepare. I didn't grab any, funny stuff to talk about, it was, so yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of 50-50. I personally did lose interest in it after a while. I feel bad saying that. I mean, there was a lot of loyal
listeners.
people that yeah, we did, and I'm glad that we went out the way we did. Not like I'm not big on doing some big dramatic like last finale episode or anything like that. And I also wasn't a fan of like allowing it to kind of fizzle out into nothing. I could see the subscribers kind of going down and down and down because the shows that we were doing were becoming more and more infrequent. So
I understand that.
Before it fizzled into nothing, I just kind of was like, all right. We didn't plan on ending it. It just, 2 weeks became a month, and then a month became 6 months, and then before we knew it, it had been a year since we had done the last episode.
I'm right there
with you.
We're
like, all right. Yeah, we're like, okay, I guess we're never going back to this, right? So,
but you should.
That was kind of the attitude.
You should get.
We should. It's still there, so we can. I mean, there's nothing stopping us from just hitting the button and starting the podcast.
Yeah,
again,
especially if with the technology today, like you don't have to be in the same room. A lot of times, like when I listen to you guys, you were like, "Oh, we're here." I've got my coffee. There's a donut. You guys are. I don't know if that's for real, but
yeah. Yeah, we feed each other. Yeah, we know he really does. He brings food and he feeds me.
Yeah. So yeah. So at this point, he could be sitting at a cash register at the coffee shop talking on his phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I
like how what we're.
but I do understand. Hold on, my computer. Okay, we're having this whole thing. My computer almost froze for a second, but I do understand how things start to fade away. Like I started my podcast, this one, Remasculate, like 7-8 years ago. I guess about the same time you guys did.
Yep.
Podbean. I was picked as one of those top podcasts as you guys. That's how I found you guys. I was always in the spotlight or some of the top 10. They had you in those boxes on podbean.com.
Yeah.
And I was spotlighted a bunch. And then you start to see that fade away. Like, okay, how come you guys aren't spotlighting me anymore? That's gonna hurt. And what I noticed is guys like you and I that had still have good podcasts, we're not getting the exposure because these podcast companies came into being. Podcast One and all these networks, and they're pushing the Joe Rogans and the all the actors and all that stuff. And I think that hurt the independent podcaster.
Sure. Yeah, there was a period of time when we first started where podcasts were so like. When I first started doing a podcast, people would be like, well, what's a podcast?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, it's a radio show. It's like, oh, like you're on the radio. No, it's like on demand. What's on demand? Like, it was now you say on demand, everything's on demand. Netflix is on demand. All of your streaming services is on demand. Like everything that you do is on demand right now. I guess podcast was like kind of the first, one of the first things that really took that medium, you know what I mean? And became like an on-demand, like that was the specialty. It was the only way you could get it. And people didn't understand it. Like when we had a podcast, there wasn't even a podcast app on your phone. You still had to go to iTunes to download the podcast, like on your desktop computer, plug in your phone and sync it to your iPhone.
Right.
So back when we first started, there was so little competition that I think that's kind of how we gained so much ground in the beginning. And then it became a thing over the next year or so where podcasts really took off. You had like Mark Maron was really getting big, Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, all of those podcasts, but still not in like they were still their own thing. They weren't in like a podcast network. They weren't in Podcast One or anything like that. But when their shows started to take off, then all of a sudden, everyone that had a computer and a microphone decided that, oh, I'm going to start a podcast too. So there really was this like 2 or 3 year period where everything was so watered down. It was so hard to pick through like the good shows. And then the complete reversal happened where now the podcast industries have taken over, pushed all of the little guys out of the way. And now they're dominating.
And they're added sucky podcasts. Even the podcast network ones. They're terrible. I would listen to I'd rather listen to guys like you and Graham and Chase that were genuinely funny because I'm, as you may or may not know, I'm an morning radio DJ and stand-up comic. Right. So I liked listening to good. You guys did a good show. I could listen to it and it wasn't feeling like hey, this is Debbie. Hey, this is John. We're in our kitchen, and we're going to talk to you today about some stuff we've been really thinking about this stuff. Because can't you listen to...
You've been really thinking about it. Right, yeah, your producers have been thinking about it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
But can't you listen? Like, sometimes I'll go through podcasts, because I want to discover a new one now and then, and I will go through, and I can, within the first minute or two, decide whether I want to hear any more of it. Because it's either the voice or the quality of it. And sometimes I'll forgive the quality if the guys make me laugh like right off the bat. But you can just tell 2-3 minutes, I'm done with this. I don't need to hear, hi, we're really excited about the new episode of The Bachelor.
Yeah. Right. And that's if you scroll through like the top 100 podcasts on iTunes right now, they're all like that too. It's I appreciate what you say about our podcast. I think what really helped us is that we had like a genuine chemistry with each other. And I think a lot of these shows, there's just people that have been picked from here and there and hired and put in a group, forced to kind of have like a fake chemistry. And you can tell that shit right out of the gate, man. Like you can hear that in their voices.
Totally. Well, that's like real radio. That's one of the reasons I'm not doing morning radio anymore. I mean, I won, not to humble brag, but I've won 3 CMA awards for best country morning radio, And
Right.
I got paired with this girl, I'm not going to say names, that was right out of college, 24 years old, and was horrible. And I used to go to the management and go, she's horrible. Well, you're not a team player. You got to learn to work together. Well, she's horrible. She's horrible.
Right.
This is not.
Yeah.
I don't need to work with somebody that's horrible. If I put bad ingredients in a pie, it's a nasty fucking pie. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. It doesn't mean you're not a team player. It just means she's a bad radio host.
Right. And I used to say it was like playing catch with a retarded child, because you would throw the ball,
Right.
They'd always bounce the ball back and forth, keep the conversation going. And you toss it to her, and it would just like hit her right in the face while she's looking at you. You're like, okay, never mind. Hey, let's just play the next song.
Yeah. How does she get that job?
Yeah.
How does she get that job? Because she went to school for it?
Yeah.
Went to college for it?
Yeah. And we'll accept a $10 an hour.
Yeah, right. Right.
And that's what radio itself has turned into. If you listen to any, and most people I know don't even listen to. My wife was a huge, she went to school for broadcasting, radio and TV. She's now like, radio has gotten so bad, all I could listen to is streaming or podcasts, because radio itself is horrible.
It is. Yeah. And with podcasts, I think the good thing is you can pick and choose what you listen to at what time too. I mean, if you have a lunch break, you can listen to it on your lunch break. You don't have to wait for the show to come on between 10 and noon. You know what I mean? You can pick whenever you want to listen to it. You can skip days. You can go back and listen to, you can binge listen, weeks at a time. So I really like podcasts. I do miss doing it. I miss the interaction with the listeners too. Like that's I guess what I miss the most. Sitting down with Graham was a good excuse to kind of hang out with my buddy, but it was also good to listen, and hear from people like how much of an impact we had on their day-to-day life. You know what I mean? But I miss doing it. But yeah, you're totally right. Radio sucks, man. I hate it. I think we talked about this the other day when we were setting this up.
Right.
We were talking about it briefly. But
I think that's what's happened to the podcast industry now. Is they're like you said, they're putting people together. They're creating these shows. These companies are telling you this is a podcast instead of just genuinely funny or people that have good ideas recording.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. And a lot of times you'll listen to one of these heavily produced podcasts from every radio station. Now, every one of them has their own podcast, and you're like, oh, this is as bad as the real show. This is the show behind the show. No, it's not. This is the shit behind the shit.
Exactly. Oh, you're taking the words right out of my mouth, buddy. Well, you feel exactly the way I do.
Well, before I left radio, I told my program director, because he was always talking about, they started doing less talk, more music. People want more music because they're streaming now. They're streaming. They're getting their music, so they want more music. No, they're streaming because they don't want to hear the same crap over and over. On the station that I was, if you heard the same song again, it means it's been 2.5 hours, because every 2.5 hours they repeated the songs. And so that becomes annoying to people. Songs you don't like, you're going to hear again. And I would tell them, I go, no, people who listen to radio now for what they can't get. They can get music anywhere. They need personality. That's what they need, personality. And I would always tell my program director, you know what the biggest shows are? Name the biggest shows. Bob and Tom, Stern. None of them play music. None of the big shows play music. It's entertainment. Right.
Yeah. And if they play music, they have the musical guest sitting in the studio with them playing the song live.
Exactly.
Yeah. So which is fun because you're getting the newest, a new spin on that. You haven't heard it in that way before. Which is yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could trash radio for the rest of the day if you want to. I hate radio.
Well, you played in a band. What type of music did you play?
Oh, I played everything, man. When I first started, I played. I'm a drummer. I've really kind of, I guess, semi-professionally. I mean, I kind of did it for a living, but as well as I do, most everybody in the music industry is not paying the bills with their income they're making. So there was always a second and third job that I had to have. But from a very early age, I became a drummer, and I played in all kinds of bands, man. I started off playing like punk rock. I went into I played some hardcore. I played in some hardcore bands. At the end, I kind of went back into that kind of pop rock, punk rock type of music. But dude, I've played jazz. I've been a part of just about everything, man. I've played just about everything under the sun. I was a session drummer for a country artist. So I've played just about everything. But I mean, I've had probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 like main projects that I worked on over probably 10 years of playing music, I guess, middle of high school up until my mid-20s.
Now, do you miss it?
I do. Yeah, I do. I miss playing. So the part that I miss is not so much performing. It's playing with my friends and creating something. So I feel like in a way that's kind of why I started the podcast. That's why I agreed with Chase to jump on board and do a podcast, because I was creating something again. You know what
outlet.
I mean? Right. So my whole life I've always kind of thought of myself as kind of like the entertainer in the crowd. Like I was always the class clown in school. When I originally became interested in music, that was like oh wow, I can do this too, and people are going to come watch me play, and that was kind of what drew me to it. It was like, I can entertain in this way now, and when the last band that I was in, we made the decision to stop. We had got to a point where we were arguing with our management, and it was becoming almost like a burden, kind of like, not, again, to use the excuse that we didn't have time to do it, but, it was one of those things where we all had lost interest. The 4 of us had kind of started, we were the, 4 best friends, started kind of fighting with each other within the band, which wasn't cool. And now looking back on it, I mean, all 4 of us are cool now. We all, feel really shitty about everything that happened, but we all made the decision very abruptly to kind of stop that.
Is there a reunion for the band?
There was.
Yeah.
There was. Yeah, we stopped playing in 2011, and we had a reunion in like 2014, I think. 2014 or 2015. We had gone like 4 years without playing. We played it was New Year's Day, I think it was. We played a concert in Portland. But yeah, anyways, like we're all good now. None of them really are involved with music at all anymore. It just kind of left a sour taste in our mouth. But I did have that kind of that like empty, like that there was like a void there.
Yeah, an artistic emptiness.
Right. So, which I kind of have now again. So, like, because I went so long. I mean, I was involved. So we did the podcast from 2012. I stopped playing music in 2011. Yeah. So 2012 up until last year, 2019. So you're talking 7 straight years of doing the same thing basically on a weekly, nearly weekly basis. And just to kind of bring that to an end, kind of, you feel kind of lost,
Yeah.
If you just stop doing comedy right now,
which I have because of COVID.
Well, I guess you haven't had a choice, right? But you probably feel totally lost, right? I mean, you have no idea what to do.
Well,
with your time.
That's one of the reasons I was reaching out to you, because of the same thing about our podcast sort of fading and not doing it as often. I'm like, I have got to be creative again. What happened to the guy? I was looking for the podcast I used to listen to, and I need to be creative again. So I had reached out to a couple of my actor friends. I don't know if you saw the podcast before, like Steve Sharippa from Blue Bloods, and I had Nick Searcy from Justified. So I was trying to you're following some big people here. But
I was going to say I am honored to be grouped in with those names. Yes, yeah, I'm a nobody.
No,
for everybody listening, I'm a nobody.
No, but you are in my book, because like I said, you were one of my favorite podcasts. Which let's go back to for a second, because I want to ask you about this. There seemed for a very small period of time, there was another podcast. Were you guys a spin-off of or part of the? Is Almost a Show?
No, we became really good friends with them. So they're from South Carolina, and we met same way you and I met. It just kind of just kind of networking, and I don't even remember how you and I first started talking, and I don't really remember how them and I first started talking. But it was kind of a Twitter message or whatever, and hey, we want to do a kind of like have you on our show, we'll go on your show type of thing. Yeah. We became really good friends with those guys too, but yeah, they kind of fizzled away as well.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, they had that one. They had the one guy that had, I can't remember his name. Had the kind of the hippie doper voice. He's always like, yeah, and he was the one that was always he might be on the show this week. They were always kind of like, he might be here.
Right. Yeah. I remember him. Yeah. So Sean, he's like a radio guy. He actually he still works in radio. He's a radio host, and the guy, and so they recorded their podcast like literally in their radio studio, that broadcasts to Greenville. So it's a pretty big market down in Greenville, South Carolina, or North Carolina, one of them. But this guy was just kind of like, he was like, I don't know, he worked like the maintenance department or something like that. He
but
was
had
not
access.
A radio guy. Right. He like, he like had the keys to the janitor's closet or something like that. And I don't know if like they were friends or how that worked, but yeah,
that's how mine started originally. I was the country DJ, and the other guy was a morning DJ at the top 40 station, and we used Mudflap. It was Mudflap and Corn Boy, and but we called it Remasculate, and we did like 6 podcast originally together. Well, when I left the radio station, his station was like, I don't think you should be doing anything outside of the radio, the building and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
So that was the split on our original show. And I'm like, hey, I like the name. Because I always thought, remasculate is almost like a brand name. That's one of those things that you could make a book about, or how to remasculate, or
Sure.
like tap out. You could see that on a shirt. I always thought like remasculate on a shirt. Never got around to it, but I always saw this has a brand possibility.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, roll with it, man. Keep it going.
But yeah, you could say that. Where's yours?
I didn't. I never made a shirt. I don't know how to make a shirt. I can't sign on to Skype. How do you think I'm going to make a shirt? I don't know how to do that shit.
Now, you guys always had some really good topics. Did you guys have a site that you like to go to, or do you just rip out things from the paper, or did you kind of go, hey, I had this idea? How did you put your show together?
So we would kind of collect things throughout the week and kind of narrow it down kind of right before we recorded. So we would, we would just, scroll through Facebook or scroll through Twitter. And if something struck us as kind of odd or funny, we would just kind of, copy and paste the link to the article, stick it in like my notes app on my phone, and then kind of like build off of it throughout the week. We would just kind of, pick and choose. Okay, we found a better article than that one that you were talking about yesterday, so we're going to cut that and we're going to put this in the show. So there was a bit of production, but for the most part, man, we'd hit record and we would just fucking
go.
We would just go.
That's the way it should be. Another thing I liked about you guys is, in stand-up terms, when you get a subject, you can run with it on stage. You can improvise. You can keep going. You can do the callbacks. You guys did a lot of that, where in real radio, they always want you to punch out. You hit the joke and you punch out. And I always think there's more than one joke. There's more than one punchline. And you guys are really good at taking something and talking about it for 5 or 10 minutes. That's what I enjoyed. It's like, don't just give up on it because you go, oh, there was a good joke. Next. And I think that's one of the weaknesses of real radio. Is just have fun. Take a topic. I always used to think that anything can be a topic. The program director would be like, what's the show going to be about tomorrow? I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. I might be driving to work and hit a turtle. That might be the whole show tomorrow.
Right.
Well, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they were like, well, you should never crack a mic unless you know what you're going to say. I get on stage.
Right.
Just because you can't turn on a mic and do it.
Yeah, that's what you do professionally.
Yeah.
You probably don't know about what you don't know how you're going to, how your performance is going to go before you get up on stage until it happens.
No, and how the audience reacts, or do they like that subject? I'll stay on it, or boom, I'm not even going to go there with this audience. Right.
Yeah, it's I guess one of the things about having the podcast is not having the producer to kind of tell us, when
wrap it up.
When to wrap up this topic, it's but at the same time we didn't know that we were doing anything good either. We didn't know that if we were on a topic for 20 minutes, we weren't looking at a watch going like, holy shit, man, people must be getting bored of this. We weren't even thinking about it. We were just talking. You know what I mean? We were just at a certain point, there were multiple points throughout almost every show that I can remember that I would almost check out and not even realize that I was still talking into a mic. Like, I'm just talking to my buddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just talking to my friend.
Yeah.
So, that was nothing that we ever paid attention to. Like, oh, we gotta stay on this topic for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever. It was just, I don't like being timed for stuff anyway. I like to just go at my own pace. I like to make my own rules.
Well, I do.
But I'm sure you do too.
Oh, I know.
That's why you're self-employed.
Yes, exactly. I don't deal well with bosses.
Right.
But I do remember you guys always would be like, we're about 4 minutes past the break time. You guys actually sort of had a break in mind.
Yep. We would. So we would plan on having. We had a very rough idea of when the breaks were going to take place. It had nothing to do with the amount of time. I think it had everything to do with if we were talking about a certain topic. When we're done with this topic, before we go into the next one, we would try to throw in like an ad or something to try to make a little bit of money. Because as you know, with podcasts, it's very tough to make money. There's not a lot of cash flow unless you're talking, unless you're working for one of those conglomerates that you were talking about earlier. But we would kind of plan for that. But there were multiple times where we'd totally forget that there was an ad at all and just kind of steamroll right through it. So.
Well, your ad that I remember was the be sure and get these wood headphones. You've never heard sound unless they've come out of wood. Wood is the best. What was that?
That was, oh man, what was that? Was Tweaked Audio was their name, and we actually helped them kind of get off the ground. You know what I mean? I think there were just a couple of kids that were starting a company that listened to our show, and they were like, "Hey, will you advertise our product?" And there was actually quite a few people that went to their site because of us. So I guess I kind of feel good about that, starting a business. I never was a shareholder or anything like that. But
we had a couple of those on the podcast, and then they turn on you. Did you ever have an advertise like a couple of them that Perky Jerky was one of them? Not their great product. I don't want to slam them, but Perky Jerky just got kicked. They kicked off and they started their company, and they were like, we'd like to be on the podcast, and your guys are the kind of people we want to, reach, the outdoorsy guy, the hunter, and I'm like, oh, cool. When they go break national, like, hey, I can't get any more product to give away on the show. What happened?
Oh, really? Yeah. They forgot about you?
Yeah, kind of forgot. Pop Chips was like that. I used to get cases of Pop Chips. They just deliver them to my house, and they give them away and just talk about it. We don't care. Have some product. And then one day, hey, this kind of, they don't need us anymore,
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. They kicked you to the curb.
Yeah.
Right.
What happens when you don't have the company behind you? I doubt anybody. I doubt Mangreat tells Joe Rogan, "Hey, we don't need you anymore," because somebody in his main office goes, "Dude, we got a contract."
Right. Yeah, that's true. Plus, anybody needs Joe Rogan. If you want to give up on Joe Rogan right now, I think I would love to be I'd love to own a company that he'd be willing to advertise, because I feel like he's like in the millions of subscribers a week or something like that.
Well, I don't want to slam Joe, because I do. I as a comic, I think he's good. As a podcaster, I think he's good. But I don't think I've ever made it through a complete Joe Rogan podcast.
They're 5.5 hours long. The fuck has 5.5 hours?
You know what I'm saying? I'm not high enough to go, keep talking, brother. Keep talking.
Yeah. He talks about some pretty far out shit. I don't have Spotify, so I'm done listening to his show, and I can't listen to his show anymore either. He just switched over full time to Spotify. So
150 million.
Yeah, must be nice, right?
Yeah. Hey, you lost listeners, but we're going to pay you $150 million. Hey, there's a lot of people that can't follow you anymore or get your show, but here's $150 million. Here's
$150 million. He kicked those listeners to the curb, just like friggin' Pop Chips kicked you to the curb.
Oh, so what other advertisers did you have? Because I just remember a lot of the guys like, hey, this is such and such from the Popcorn Podcast. When you're listening to the, you had a bunch of those kind of.
Right, and I had you on there too.
Yeah, I did a couple commercials for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I really need to go to the bathroom, I listen to the.
Yeah, thank you for that one. Thanks for sending me. That's good. We had like a video game company that Chase set up some sort of trade, like you could buy and sell and trade video games. I don't remember them because I was not into video games. That was not my deal. So he set that one up. We did, let's see. I mean, Amazon, we had a link that people, if you were buying a product with Amazon, you click our link and we would get a kickback. I mean, we didn't really run that many. There were like 3 or 4 very specific companies and then Amazon, and then that was it.
Did you make any money from that Amazon?
There were months where we did. Yeah, there were months where we made a couple $100, but then there were months at a time where we wouldn't make enough for them to pay us.
Yeah.
You have to make a certain amount every month.
Because I did that. I signed up for that affiliate, thing. Yeah. And never got paid. Apparently I didn't even make enough for a couple $100, but I didn't plug it as much as I should. I just had the banner on the site or on other things. And I finally gave up on it. I still get emails from, hey, as an Amazon affiliate, would you you still get any of that kind of stuff?
Oh, I don't even check. Oh. As a matter of fact, when you asked me to come on the show, I logged into the podcast email for the first time in literally a year, and it was all spam. It was like, get your free Gucci bag and shit like that.
ED.
Right? Yeah, I clicked on a couple of those.
Don't you love how some of these new spam ads they try to get around the filters with by are you still there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
My phone did something weird. Let me see if there you are. They try to get around the filters with misspellings or do you have an E plus space D problem? There's these weird combinations of how they're
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's still an ED ad.
Yeah, make your P bigger. Well, I guess the word isn't spelled out, so the spam filter didn't get penis.
Right.
Oh. Well, I see you have your your Christmas tree up behind you, decorated with the hat on it. Are you a?
Can you see that?
Yeah, see it very well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
there you go. You can see that.
Yeah. So you decorated when? Did you go up early? Are you one of those like COVID is sucking so bad? I'm putting it up at Halloween, like a lot of people. No. We put it up probably a week and a half ago. Right, it was shortly after Thanksgiving. So I don't mind people that put it up. I outside of COVID, it drives me insane if somebody has their tree up before Thanksgiving, because I can't handle more than just a few weeks of Christmas at a time. You know what I mean? Like there's just too much. I've already heard the Mariah Carey song literally 10,000 times. All I want for Christmas is you.
Yeah, if I've ever been close to fucking shoving forks in my ears, buddy, it's that song. But I can't handle more than just a few weeks of Christmas, man. If it gets to the point, if my wife is very into Christmas, so she in the past has put it up before Thanksgiving, and she knows that I don't like it, so I'll just come home and the entire house will look like the fucking Elf movie. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what happened? She's like, oh, don't you like it? And I'm like, yeah, it looks great. But do we really have to look at this for 8 more weeks? It's fucking Christmas is in 2 months.
Right,
you know?
but see, she thought it would put you in the mood. You might not be in the mood, but seeing it might go, oh, look at the colors, look at the bright lights. Oh, I'm a happier person. Instead, it actually flipped the switch in you, and you're like, what the hell? Do I have to look at this?
Right in the opposite direction. The tree and the Mariah Carey song, between those two fucking things, man. I'm ready to go on a murderous rampage by Christmas time just about every year. So
does your wife throw on the Hallmark channel? Do you get the Hallmark movies, the Christmas movies?
Yes. Yeah, Hallmark and Lifetime. Our DVR is about 90% full right now, full of that shit.
Ours totally is. My wife has recorded every new movie that Hallmark does. They're like 25 Days of Christmas or whatever. There's 25 brand new ones with the older ones in it. She's got it set for every one of the new ones. And it's like every night, you want to watch a Hallmark movie? I don't know. Can I go in the garage and beat my dick with a hammer?
That sounds better. I think next time you do that, just let me know. I'll come on over.
But every one of them is exactly the same. And she goes, I know. That's why I like them. It's because it's a happy ending. The world is a annoying, unhappy place right now. And why shouldn't you want to see something, joyful?
Yeah. There was one the other day that she was watching. They're so horribly scripted and terrible acting, and it's just it's bad. So there was one that while she was watching it, the premise was this girl falls in love with this guy, comes home for Christmas, falls in love with this guy that she went to high school with. This guy's name just happens to be Chris Massey.
Oh.
Isn't that touching?
Oh, it's very close to Chris isn't it? Oh.
As soon as I figured that out, I was like, I'm turning right the fuck back around. You can finish this movie yourself.
Well, have you seen the ads for Brokeback Christmas?
No. Is that real? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, I saw the ad. I saw the ad yesterday. It's called Dashing in December or something like that. And and the scenes is two cowboys with their cowboy hats, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna. It's gonna be there for somebody, but. Just call it Brokeback Christmas. Just be honest. Right. I can't quit you, Santa.
Hey, you actually have a thing out that you put a lampshade on that boot behind you there, Steve. You can put that in the that's
in the window
Christmas
right there.
Stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put a lampshade on that shit. You can make your own Christmas
That's
movie.
true. That Janet got that in Vegas. That's supposed to be a showgirl's leg drink, one of those giant 82-ounce drinks. But you're right. I just throw a lampshade on. I hadn't even thought about that.
You should do that. I just saw that.
The things we have in the background of our...
Yeah. I don't know what I have in the background. I didn't really clean up. I didn't know you could see behind me, but apparently you can see my Christmas tree.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's not the Charlie Brown tree. That's good.
No, she likes to spend money on Christmas.
Speaking of Charlie Brown, the special... Charlie Brown Christmas is 55 years old today, by the way.
Really?
Are you a fan, or were you a fan of the Charlie Brown Christmas special?
Yeah, I used to watch it when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in a few years, but yeah, I used to watch that.
Which of those
is it?
No, it just, it's always, it's not Christmas.
I know this is going somewhere.
No, it's just not until these shows, start to air. Charlie Brown is like the first one, and then there's Rudolph, the claymation or whatever it was, and Burl Ives writing.
I'm waiting for all those to get banned for being racist or something.
That's where I was going. How do these some of these shows, like they already called the Charlie Brown one racist because of so many white people at the Christmas table.
Right. Yeah, it was just, man, I don't know, man. It's quite a world we live in now, isn't it? How do you, I'd be so scared if I had your profession, if I had to get up on stage, and you probably don't give a shit, huh? You don't watch what you say. You just get up and just go all out.
I don't do it as much. I don't care, and I don't do it as much as I used to. I used to really be like worse, but where I've started to try to look out for is Twitter. I used to use Twitter as my you could leave Facebook and go to Twitter and say what you couldn't because your mom and grandma and your teachers were on Facebook. But Twitter, you could go over there and make the most vile jokes. And it was sort of the internet version of a show I did years ago called Full Frontal Comedy. It was on Showtime. It was called Full Frontal Comedy. And the guy that produced it said, every comic, no matter how clean you are, has written a joke that you go, oh man, I can't say this in public. That was the point of that show, Full Frontal. They wanted you to come on and just tell something that you would like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And that's
which I love that stuff.
Yeah. And that's what
I wish that show was still around.
Yeah. And that's what Twitter to me was when it first kicked off. And that's why everybody's getting in trouble for he said this 10, 12 years ago. All the cancel culture. What's your take on the cancel culture?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think because there's some people that are getting away with it because they're just I don't know. like Rogan, for instance, he can do and say whatever he wants, and no one really gives a shit. But then, your average person can get up and say the same thing, and all of a sudden he's a racist asshole.
Right.
So,
and I'll have your
I
company
don't really
fire
know.
you.
To me, it's just confusing, and I guess that's all I really have to say about it. It's confusing to me, and I don't like confusing.
Well, can you imagine so many?
Did you disappear? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? We're back. Am I back? If we dropped, I'll reconnect real quick. You got me? All right, I'll call you right back. Damn, Skype dropped again. We got to reconnect. But like you said, we made it 40-something minutes without it. 40
minutes, man.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
That's
a technology record in this day and age, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, especially with the internet here in Maine.
Do y'all have crappy internet?
No. It was a joke. Everybody thinks that because we're in Maine, everybody thinks that we have the worst of everything. Like I used to travel a lot playing music, and I'm losing you again.
What?
Look at that.
What? Stay with me. Stay with me. Clear. Stay with me. Are you back? People listening to this are like, he got dropped. Are you there?
Bitching about podcast one, and they're not happy right now.
Yeah, so tell me again about how good the internet is in Maine. Tell me.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel like everybody thinks everything is garbage up here in Maine because we're out in the sticks, we're out in the woods, but we're supposed to have good internet. I mean, I live in a pretty populated area, so.
Where are you in conjunction? Or the only place I've been is Bar Harbor, Maine.
Oh, okay. I was just there about a month ago. Bar Harbor's about 3 hours northeast of here.
Okay. I went there working a cruise ship. I'd never been, and I'd never had a lobster roll before. And apparently Bar Harbor is supposed to be the lobster roll capital. Apparently from every store in that area. We have the best in Maine. We have the best in Maine.
Oh, yeah, everything is the best in Maine. Of course it is. Yeah.
So I had never had one before. I ate one. It was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm going to do a little test. I am going to go around to different places and have lobster rolls. So I made myself sick, honestly. I had about 5 lobster rolls with different, one on the street corner. This one was a little tugboat that was selling lobster rolls and all this kind. And I'm like, okay, that was good. Oh, that was really good. Oh, that was okay. This one has too much mayonnaise. Oh, I don't feel good. That's basically how it went.
Yeah. Right. And you also spent $200 on 5 lobster rolls too.
Right, because they were like $15-$20 a piece.
Expensive.
Why is that? When lobsters apparently just crawl up and ask you will you eat me in Maine? Because y'all have lobsters that are just like, you flush your toilet and one comes up.
Yeah, exactly. Especially around here. I think it's just the tourism industry here capitalizing on people being ignorant and not being from around here and knowing how cheap lobster is,
Well, here I am.
If we can charge $25, right, and you ate 5 in one day. There you go, Steve. No. By the way, thank you for that for the tourism money that paid for our taxes in the state that year. So, no, I don't know. I can get lobster real cheap just down the street from here. So if you're local, you know where to go and not spend $20 or $30. There's this one place in Wiscasset called Red's Eats or something like that, and you have to wait in line literally for 2 hours to get a lobster roll, and people line up down a bridge that goes all the way like a quarter of a mile from the restaurant. People are lined up just to get a lobster roll. And it's not that great. I mean, you can go to any place in Maine and get a lobster roll just as good for way cheaper and way less of a wait. So I don't.
Well, I found one place here in Denver that does lobster roll. It's a kind of a fancy restaurant, and they're smaller. They're smaller than the ones back in Maine, but it's pretty good. It compares favorably with the ones up there. But when you think about it, basically it's some lobster, mayonnaise, celery, and I don't know what all's in it, but that's what I sort of remember.
That's about it.
And it's not a lot of lobster. It's like, why are you charging you're like 6 shrimp on a salad? It's that kind of,
Right. No, it's a lot of money, man. I don't know. I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't spend that kind of money. If I'm getting a lobster roll, I know where to go and I know where to not spend $30 for a lobster roll. So
now is a lobster roll there? Do y'all frown on it because it's everywhere? Like, I don't get it. But, you people come up here and want lobster rolls. They're not even that. We don't eat them here. That kind of deal.
No. Mainers are just as crazy about lobster as anybody else that's coming up here. Like, I feel like it's one of the most popular things to eat up here, as far as like especially in the summertime. If you're on the coast somewhere, like everybody has lobster, and if you're going to a restaurant, you're probably getting lobster. Like a coastal restaurant, you're probably getting lobster. Like you wouldn't get chicken at a fucking seafood place. They'd probably throw you out for that.
Well, it's like down in the South, they have Kentucky Fried Chicken because in the South you got to have your chicken. Is there a place in Maine that's like the Colonel that everybody if you want lobster you got to go to
No, there's no Colonel Sanders and lobster. No, there's nobody like that here. No.
That's some finger-licking good lobster right there.
Yeah. No, there's no place, no mecca of lobster. As far as I know.
Don't you think that could be the business for you right there?
Sure,
you could actually, Tom's Lobster Sticks or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, we had an idea while we were in high school that we wanted to. I came up with this idea. I wanted to open a crab restaurant on the coast called Itchy's Crab Shack, and
Itchy's Crab Shack.
Yeah, I came up with that in high school. Obviously, my mind was, that was my humor in high school, so I thought it was hilarious. I kind of still do as a 32-year-old. So,
well, I still do. I'll agree with you because that's right up there with like Dick's, like those restaurant Dick's where they, go in and insult you while you eat, and
Yeah. I've never been to one of those. I'd love to try one, though.
Yeah.
I bet the food is terrible. It's just the experience.
I bet Itchy's Crab Shack might be like that, too.
Yeah, you might get something.
I went to Itchy's and I got the crabs. That kind of.
Yeah, that's a good T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, before we go, I wanted to ask you about, since it is Christmas time, and basically I'm going to have this as a Christmas show. This will be, since we're so close, we talked about the specials and your tree back there. What special memory do you have about Christmas? Was there a toy that you were dying for? Was there your Red Ryder BB gun? Was there something you wanted or was dying for? And this is going to, I hate to be a bummer on this show. We grew up with not a lot of money. So typically the things that I asked for, I never saw. So that's typically. Well, this is now going to turn into the right. Tomathon. Yeah. Help raise money for Tom.
Yeah. Way to bring up those memories, Steve. No,
your stocking was actually a sock, just a sock.
I got an apple one year. That was good. We used to get gifts. It's just that usually like the gifts that were like the hot gifts of the year were the ones that were a lot of money. And we never saw those. I guess my memory of Christmas now is, now that I am in a good financial spot, my memory now is buying gifts for like my family members and my brother's kids. And, my family does not have a lot of money. So it's good to kind of, be there for them and give them what they want. I guess that more than anything, it makes me more in the Christmas spirit than any sort of memory I ever had as a kid during Christmas time.
So you do have the Christmas spirit. You don't hate the tree in the season as bad as you say.
Yeah, I guess you're right. No, I still hate the fucking song though, man. That's what I hate.
All I want for Christmas.
You got to play that as the outro music now, if you have license for it. Yeah.
Well, what toy did you want that you didn't get? Let's go down that hurtful memory lane. What was the one that you're like, I really want this?
Are you trying to make me cry? Well, if I had a therapist, what I would tell her is the Power Rangers. Do you remember the Power Rangers?
Oh yeah.
So when I was a kid, the Power Rangers were huge. They had just come out when I was in like kindergarten, 4 or 5 years old, probably.
Go Power Rangers!
Yeah, so they were the hottest thing. So So I remember wanting Power Rangers action figures worse than anything. Multiple, like birthday, Christmas, you name it. And I think I actually at school I think I actually stole one from the class that like in his backpack or something because I wanted it that badly. And then I remember having to give it back. I can't remember why. I can't remember if the teacher found out or somebody told the kid or something. But anyways, that's how badly I wanted a Power Rangers action figure.
Yeah.
I got the knockoff action figures. I got like the
Dollar Tree ones,
Karate Frank. Yeah. I got that one.
Yeah,
they weren't.
I've joked about that before with all the Dollar Tree toys are always the semi knockoffs of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja lizards. It's
right.
They're not quite there. It's like Nora the Explorer. Yeah. and as an adult, you're thinking, no kids, they're not going to know the difference. The packaging almost looks the same. And as soon as you hand it to your kid, they're like, this is crap. This is.
I knew the difference. Trust me, I knew the difference when I used to unwrap the knockoffs. I mean, I'm not unappreciative of it now, but back then I didn't know. I was just like, what the fuck, Mom? Like, who the hell is G.I. George? Like,
with his kung fu feet.
Right. So, I mean, I actually, as a matter of fact, that you can't see it, it's off camera, but I'm looking at my table and there's all the stuff that we've bought for my nieces over there, and there's like Barbies and all kinds of expensive shit. So they're going to be happy this Christmas. They're going to be very happy. So that's what makes me happy.
Well, who was your favorite Power Ranger?
The red one. The red one.
Yeah. Now
I still remember their names.
What was it? What was their names? Go there.
Jason was the red one. Billy was the blue one. Zach was the black one, who was also a black guy, was the Black Ranger. Now, you want to talk about cancel culture, figure that one out. Next was the Yellow Ranger, who was an Asian
guy.
Yeah, and then the pink one was Kim. That was the first lineup, the only lineup that mattered. They came out with other fucking lineups years later.
What was the woman that was the witchy kind of thing that had the putties or whatever?
Oh, I don't remember.
Remember her? She was like the scepter, and she'd always like show up.
Yeah. I don't remember. I remember their names. I don't remember any of the villains or anything like that. Apparently, Bryan Cranston was on that show.
Really?
That's what I hear. So I don't remember it that well.
Yeah,
but I do remember their names and the colors that they were. So
I saw Kimberly, the actress. I don't remember her name, but I saw her in L.A. at the airport, LAX, and that was the first thing that I went. That's the Pink Ranger. It's like how your brain. I was like, I don't know who. Right. Just going. That's the Pink Ranger.
Go up and start doing karate moves. Too.
Yeah, like I bet you never get any of this, do you? You never have anybody come up.
Yeah.
But I remember I used to do a bit back years ago when Rangers were out, and my son was a big Power Rangers guy too, and he would stand in front of the TV and karate kick. Like he would do the fighting with them while they were doing it on TV.
Oh yeah, me too, man. I wanted to be a black belt so badly.
Oh yeah. And I go, which Ranger are you? And he goes, I'm the Pink Ranger, Daddy. And I go, what the I go, here's a football. Get your ass outside. There's not going to be any Pink Rangers in Daddy's home. Can you talk about that? Would get me in some. Well, this is probably going to get me in trouble right now for repeating it. But that was 10, 15 years ago, and that. And I did that on an album. That would have got if anybody did that now, that would be like total cancel culture. I can't believe you'd be talk about that. Your child should be free to be whatever they want to be. Where the old days, dads tried to raise sons to be sons, and which is the whole point of this podcast was remasculate. That's how this thing got started. Was we both had kids. We were like, look, we need to let boys have BB guns again and give them bows and arrows and let them go. Shoot stuff and touch a dead frog.
Yeah, that's the shit I grew up doing. So, yeah.
And none of us ever felt like we were wronged in any way,
Right. Yeah, because we didn't have a lot of money. My brother and I spent a lot of time outdoors too. So yeah, we were the kids getting dirty when everybody else was inside playing Nintendo and shit.
Right.
Like that.
But you're supposed to. That's the way we grew up. Was like going outside and you found a dead frog that had been run over and stiff in the sun. It was now a ninja star because the four legs were just sticking out. Like it's a ninja star. That's the kind of stuff we did. Or you found a stick and you sharpened it and you made a spear and you threw it at cans.
Right. Yeah. You had to be creative. You had to come up with your own fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing. Imagination. Well, imagination is lacking in a lot of kids today. I remember in Halloween, people would say, "What are you going to be for Halloween?" You're like, "I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet." Because we would come up with creativity. You made your costume. I bet you made a costume or two, right?
Yeah, we used to make costumes. Yeah.
And we did have a parent to be like, "I'm taking you down and buying you a $200 Ice Princess Disney costume."
Right. That you're going to wear once.
Yeah. Because we used to be like, what are you going to be? I don't know. I want to be Spock, so I'm going to make some clay ears, Yeah.
Right. That didn't look anything
like it. Yeah. And you would draw spiky eyebrows that didn't work because you didn't shave off your other eyebrows, just.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you knew nobody knew what you actually were, but you knew what you were. So that's all that mattered.
Yeah, I'm Spock. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, man, I'm glad you decided to do the podcast. I hope this gives you the podcast bug again. I hope maybe you'll reach out to Graham and go, "How about one more? Just one more."
All right. Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. And it does. This is good. I appreciate you being on my on your show. I'm sorry.
I would do that.
I know you would. I know you would. I appreciate you inviting me onto yours because I do miss this. So this is actually it feels good to be talking to someone on the computer again. So that's good.
Well, would you ever be interested in doing more podcasts together? Sure.
Yeah. The one thing is with me is time is it really is a problem. But as long as, like you said, I mean, if I'm sitting on the toilet,
I got my phone. As long as you don't flush, no one's going to know.
Right. Exactly. So we can figure it out. If it's something you want to do, then let me know.
Yeah, that might be fun. Maybe once a month or something, kind of get together, throw some things around, and make Graham jealous. Hey.
Yeah, there we go. If only that.
Well, this is the part of the show where I would tell people, "Hey, tell everybody how to find you," but apparently you don't give a shit anymore. You just don't care. You don't have a podcast. You don't have a website. You don't have.
I like my privacy. I do. I post every once in a while on Twitter. You can go to @TomDavinSays on Twitter. I post very rarely there. I have, however, been using Instagram a whole lot more because I'm since COVID happened, I've been kind of getting into photography. I bought like a pretty nice camera and a few lenses, and gives me an excuse to kind of go out into the woods and down to the coast and take some pictures. So if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram as well. It's just @TomDavin. I don't have a creative handle or anything like that. It's just my name because I, again, don't give a shit about doing any of that.
But you can still post, recommend your podcast because how many years of back podcast? They're still up, most of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tell people to go back and listen.
Yeah, you can go to saywhatpodcast.com. I think it's still up. I think I paid for a 5-year domain. If it's not, you can search for it on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify. It's just the Say What Podcast. We should have a back catalog that goes back quite a few years. So yeah, anybody that wants to listen, go check it out.
Cool. Well, man, I appreciate it. Tom, thanks for doing the show. Thanks for coming on and letting me hurt you, bring your feelings to the surface again, and make you feel something this holiday season.
Yeah, I felt something all right.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks for doing it, and we'll chat soon.
All right.
All right. See you. Thanks. Well, guys, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. I had so much fun talking to Tom, getting him the bug to want to do a podcast again. go check out his podcast, the Say What podcast. Like you said, there's a lot of back episodes, a lot of fun shows. And just because something isn't right now doesn't mean it's not relevant. You could listen to a show of his or mine from 4 or 5 years ago, and funny is still funny. So check it out. So guys, thanks for listening. Until next time, God bless America. Go listen to some Oak Ridge Boys. I bid you adieu.
In the basement of the mud flap house, blasting and poo, and they're under with the grains and news. And Pooh licks herself, and Flap contemplates manly things. He thinks about guns and trucks and Stooges 3, men and boys, and that doesn't sound right. He thinks about boobs and bacon and power tools. Come with me, let's remasculate. Oh, won't you come with me and remind